All right, so at any time, if you have any questions or anything like that, you're welcome to just fill those out into the questions field on the sidebar of your GoToWebinar. We have gotten one question so far. The question being, we have an M2 and our main issue is getting consistent prints and getting rid of heat press marks after the print is finished. Trying to have the finished product to give customers right off the machine without telling them that they need to wash it before acceptable to wear. Okay, so this is pretty easy. It's all in the prep work of the shirts. We'll go through and kind of show you what needs to be done. Okay, so we were doing some samples here this morning, and something I did want to point out is that we had a mistake in one, but let me show you how easy it is, and kind of like this would be a good indicator if you ever saw this. This would be going on. So here, let me turn on my camera real quick. All right. Okay. So over here on my M2, we were printing some samples this morning, and we had one kind of make a mistake on us. Let me see if I can show you. All right, so as you can see, this looks really blurry in here, okay? The reason being, and this side's really crisp. So let's see what happened here. Let me back the camera up just a little bit. You can actually see right there on the middle of the screen that my platen is sitting up on top of this little screw here. So if I pull this out, it's actually kind of stuck. So what had happened is the shirt back here in the back, right up here, had gotten caught back there, so it couldn't go all the way in. So anytime I put platens on the machine, I always give them a little bit of wiggle, so that way they make sure that they sit nice and flat. So, but unfortunately, this shirt is now ruined, and this one is too, because what would happen is, if it's sitting up like this, and you push it in, it's leveling to the higher platen, okay? And this is still too low, so it's too far away from the print head, so you get blurry. All right, so yeah, let's move on from this real quick. And I'm going to show you all kind of how to get a better finish on this shirt. I've never really had any problems with having to wash shirts beforehand, but it has to do a lot with the pre-prep of the actual garments. Let's see here. There's a machine. We'll focus this over here so you can watch me kind of prep the shirt up real quick. All right. Okay. So I'm just using a basic shirt here. This is one of the Fruit Loom HDs. We'll go over here to my pre-treat machine. Now, unfortunately, there is no blanket setting for the for pretreatment because every shirt's a little bit different, as well as the fact that humidity plays a huge part in it, how much moisture is in the atmosphere, all kinds of good stuff. So when you're doing pretreatment, sometimes you do have to test when you first get the equipment, so that way you kind of know what shirts do what. So as a recommendation is to go to your manufacturer, wherever you get your shirts from, and get several different styles, different weights of fabric and things like that, and then kind of see what they do. Get like 2 or 3 of each one of them and kind of just test it. See how much pretreatment is required to go in there versus how much pressure, those type of things, and just the overall point quality once it's finished. All right, so this is a little bit thicker of a piece of cotton, so I'm definitely going to put a little bit more pretreatment on here. All right, I'm going to make sure my Spider Mini is working properly today. Sure, we got the right pretreatment loaded in. Okay. So this is going to be on the M2, so I'm going to need the P30. high dark garment pre-treat. Switch that one over. So I usually run it for about 10-15 seconds, just to make sure that the pretreatment gets all the way through the tube and up to the nozzle surface before I go through pretreatment. So I'm going to do this one on about a 6. Now, what you'll see here, bring this in a little bit closer. This is the important part here. When it comes out, it definitely looks like there's a lot of pretreatment on it. You see it a lot more on the shirt. So it actually physically looks wet. All right? If it looks extremely wet, then that pretreatment is sitting on top of the fabric a little bit more. So 2 things that I could do. I can try to even that pretreatment out, like spread it across using like a roller. Or I can also use this technique if you don't have good results with a roller. You can take a fresh piece of release paper, lay it square on the shirt over here while it's still on the Spider Mini, and just smooth the pretreatment into itself. It kind of gets all that surface moisture more into the fabric. Okay. So then I still notice that there's a lot of wetness on the surface here. I mean, you can physically see it. So if I would heat press this at this time right now, it would definitely make it look like a glazed donut. And now to have a real big like rectangle and everything like that for after I pre-pressed it. Okay, so now I'm going to take the shirt off of here. I need to get that pre-treatment to go into the fabric a little bit more. So you can definitely see it on the front here. Back up a little bit. I'm going to flip up here on my heat press. And then this is our trick right here. We're going to hover this for as long as it takes to let that pretreatment not be shiny on the shirt surface. All right? It basically diffuses the pretreatment so it kind of soaks into the cotton a little bit better, leaving it not so wet looking. It'll actually have the steam will start coming up on it after about probably about 30 seconds or so. So that's about 30 seconds. I'm going to pop it up and take a look at it. It's definitely gotten a little bit darker. You don't see the pretreat as much. I might go for about 15 more seconds just to get it a little bit more in there. If it was still wet looking, I would definitely have to hover even up to like a minute. So, but basically what I'm looking for, and I'll pull the shirt off to show you. All right, so that's about 15 more seconds. I've got steam coming up from it. And as you can see here, the pretreatment is no longer shiny on there. All right, it's just damp looking. It looks like a darker square like it was wet, but it's already been wrung out. All right, so now I've got to pre-press it. What the pre-pressing does is mat down those fibers so I get that good white layer. Wipe off this pre-treatment a little bit. Usually I use a separate piece of paper for the pressing into the pre-treatment over there on the Spider Mini, because this will get real sticky and I don't want it to stick to the actual shirt. So I'll get a fresh piece of the release paper here. Square it up, and then I'm going to press this 340 degrees for probably about 15 seconds. Okay? And it's about a medium pressure. It's not enough where I just click close when I close it, and it's not enough where I have to actually squish it down for the magnet to catch. All right. So then, if the paper sticks to the shirt whatsoever, then I need to press it again for about like 5-10 seconds, or until this paper basically floats away from the shirt without it even like touching the garment. See how it just kind of floated away there? So now, when you look at it, You still have the iron mark because you're taking a piece of, you're basically, that's what your heat press is a big iron. But I do not have a big area where you can see the shininess of pre-treat versus the just the regular shirt fabric. All right, so let's go back over here and we'll hoop this up real quick. We'll even go through the process of, sorry about that, but that was nice and dizzy. Okay, so let's see, let's go ahead and get this garment hooked up here. Okay, bring this over here. All right. So when I'm placing this on, I do not have to tuck in every piece of this fabric into the shirt. All right, so I like to keep the collar up here on the top and then slide it off the edge. Depending on what image I'm doing, if it's a really tall image, I'll even slide it a little bit further, but trying to keep that center part of the curve here in the center of the platen so that way it stays straight. All right, so I registered it on either side to make sure that there's the same distance right in here, all the way down, that it's not twisted. And then I just took a little bit at a time, all right? And I'm kind of curling up so that way I'm not trying to stretch the top part of the fabric, making it skew. Because once I print to it, as soon as the liquid gets to it, it'll start to move around and stuff. So I just try to keep the fabric taut and not stretch. So you notice I just tucked a little bit in the front and the bottom here. Move this back a little bit. All right. And then, just to get the excess in there, to hold it a little bit tighter and kind of hold those corners down, I just tuck a little bit in. Tuck the excess underneath, and it goes pretty quick. So you notice I don't have any wrinkles. The corners are down. There's no little waviness to it. It's nice and taut. None of the seam or the label is sticking up. Flip around here. All right. So now I've got to make sure that that it's set to the proper gap. So anytime I do this, the load lasers are inside the cover right here. So I have to be able to, they've got to be able to see it. So if I break that beam, the bed automatically starts dropping. So it's a safety feature, so if like a collar or something like this, that the print head going across it doesn't hit it. All right? But once it's past those lasers, it does not read. All right, so I'll just insert the first part of the shirt just inside the cover about 1 inch or so. Hold the up button until it stops. The light will go red, and then when I let go, self-levels back down to the gap and turns green. You can always manually scan the entire shirt surface. So if you were doing, say, like a hoodie or something that had like a weird shape to it or had a seam involved with it, you can always just slide it through just like this manually. And as you're sliding it, it's that laser is reading. So once I get it into the cover, then hit load. Light will go green above there, and now it's in the ready to print stage. All right, so let's go back over here to the RIP software. I want to turn the camera off for a second and just have the screen showing. Okay, so let's figure out what image we're going to print on here real quick. Let's see. Let's do something with some color. So we made this design for Daytona Bike Week a couple years back. All right. So from here, I'm just going to minimize Photoshop real quick. I'm going to go into my RIP software. Make this bigger so we can see it. All right, let me make sure that camera's turned off here. All right, so now I have my RIP software up. I'm going to do a graphics print because this is definitely saturated with large areas of color. It's got a nice vibrant pink to it. So I want that saturated color. That's the difference between the hues with graphics in the name versus the ones that do not have graphics in the name. Graphics are more saturated. The ones without are more photorealistic, so you get more like skin tones print out better. Okay, so let's go ahead and import this image. Okay. Oops, I have the wrong platen up here. And I'm in the white shirt cube, so I need to be in the black shirt cube. That's always cardinal rule. Make sure to get your template selected before you import your image. Okay. So I don't want to do a same. I'm just going to do a 2-up. All right, let's hit open. Oh, I'm going to do it in black best to start with. Let's make this a little bit bigger. I can even click on this right here, and I can max it out to the page size. So if I want to max it out to its widest point, I just hit that. All right, we'll make it a little bit shorter. I don't want it right on the edge. I'll say about 2.5 from the top. And since I've already got the shirt loaded, let's go ahead and hit print and see what it looks like. Okay, let me turn it back on the camera here. All right, we'll come back over here. That way I can show you. So what it's doing first, it's going to print that underbase just like normal printing. If I would have noticed that, say, my little thin lines were getting like doubled, then yeah, I would probably want to, say, adjust either the platen heights, making sure that they're level, or also adjusting the gap lasers, where those actual lasers are located. So that way it's the perfect distance between the bottom of the print head and the actual shirt surface itself. One thing also a lot of people don't realize is that you can do head cleanings right in the middle of a print. If you notice that you had like streaking or something like that where a couple of the nozzles were plugged, all you would have to do is hold down the enter button for about 3 or 4 seconds and it does a head cleaning automatically. And then it'll pick up right where it left off. So that's an easy way to save a shirt on the M2. Does anybody have any questions up to this point? Oh, just as another little tidbit advice for your M2s, if you look down here, the spit pad itself, a lot of people have not been maintaining the spit pad properly. You notice how ours is very absorbent. The ink actually soaks into it. All right, to keep yours doing that on a daily basis and making the life expectancy of that thing a lot longer, when you're done with your evening maintenance, like completely done with it, you need to take this off at the end of the night, just pop it right off, and then take it over to your sink and rinse it out with tap water. It's not actually touching the print head, so it's okay if you run tap water over it. So that'll get the bulk of the ink out of it. And to prevent it from drying up overnight and stuff like that and getting hard and brittle from just air, what I also do is take like a little Solo cup or a coffee mug and just fill it up with water and then drop it in there so it stays wet overnight. And then when I come in the morning, I tap it off and then just put it back on and then start my morning movements. Okay. Also, you may be noticing as well that the ink looks really wet on there. It's got a good little reflection on it. It is definitely wet, but it's not puddled. It's not bleeding into the white. If you ever have your colors kind of mixing with the white ink, usually that means that the white ink isn't solidified quick enough for the color to go on top of it. All right, so sometimes you might have to reduce the amount of white ink going down, or you need to maybe adjust the levels of pretreatment you have. One of the symptoms of not having enough pretreatment on the shirt is that the white ink does not it does not harden, okay? Meaning that the color going down on top of it, the white ink would still be wet, and that would not give us a good print. So that would just basically indicate, yes, I need to put a little bit more pretreatment on my garment. But say the ink is really wet when it comes off the machine, there's also a technique that I can do for hovering it, so that way it kind of helps the top layer of ink skin over, so that way it doesn't kind of smash into itself. Okay. The camera a little bit. So now we've got to cure the thing. All right. So I'll inspect this really close up and everything. Let's see. So it's not like crazy wet, like where it's saturated or anything like that, but it definitely has a high volume of ink on there. Okay. So I'll come back and grab the camera in a second after I set this down. All right, excuse the roller coaster ride here. Okay. So some stuff to notice here. Let me pull this back a little bit. Okay, so I noticed that when I was tucking, my hands probably weren't as clean as they should have been. I just got done with lunch. But you'll notice that when your tuck marks and stuff can sometimes leave a little bit of like a, if you have dirty hands or anything like that. So just make sure you have clean hands when you're hooping this stuff. All right, so now I've got to cure this for the specific amount of time, so that way it will, the inks will adhere to the fabric. And I also want to prevent the marks on the shirt as well. Okay, let me adjust my heat press here. For the P30i inks, anytime I use white ink on a shirt, it is 3 minutes of cure time at 340 degrees. All right, so also, I have the choice of the way I want the shirt, the finish of the shirt to look. If I use a piece of the silicone release paper, it gives it a shiny, almost sticker appearance to it. Some people love it. Me personally, I prefer the Pretreatment paper, which gives it more of a smooth matte finish. So I'll square that up, try not to slide it across the image. Don't really need to hover it because I did not see any really saturated wet spots. So I'm just going to go ahead and press that at medium pressure and then let that go through its cure time. So we'll take a look at it after it's done to see if we have those press lines. Okay, I'll pull you back over a little bit. Hold on, guys. All right, are there any questions up to this point? Pretty basic stuff so far. And I haven't done no special chemicals or anything like that. It's just the way that I've handled the shirt from putting the pre-treatment onto it, pre-pressing it, and then printing, and then curing. Okay, still got about 2 more minutes. All right. So any other questions up to this point before we move on? Okay. Some of the other stuff while we're waiting on this shirt to come off of the heat press, I'm going to start talking about the Viper 2 as well. Does anybody that's in attendance today, do they own the Viper 2 versus the M2? If nobody owns the Viper 2, then I can probably skip over that little tutorial. All right. So yes. So Robert, yeah. So I'll touch base on the Viper 2. What I was going to explain is kind of adjusting your media switch. So what I'll do is after this one shirt comes up, then we will I'll stop the recording and then start a new recording for that particular section of this. 20 more seconds. Yeah, you might also wonder what that little white pad that I have on my heat press base is. That is a product that Coleman & Company sells called a no-max pad. It means it has no max heat that it can't handle, so that way it doesn't melt. All right, so let's see what we got here. Well, the benefit of the no-max pad is when you have like doing rhinestones or sequins and stuff like that, so you might have stones that are at different heights. It's one of the other products that we sell here at ColDesi, but it helps kind of push all the material up into the same height. All right, so if I look here at my shirt here, I do have a little bit of a press line, but that's also the moisture out of the garment. So it's not too prevalent right here. I've sold shirts like this before, but if I did want it to be a little bit more fluffy, then I would definitely probably use like a stand-up steamer. Or there's another product that you can get out there that I've used for embroidery to remove poop marks. It's called Magic Sizing. Magic Sizing is a light spray starch that has a real crisp linen smell to it, but it kind of reactivates the fabric, kind of fluffs it back up. So what I would do is just lightly spray over top of the garment and just kind of let it sit and shake out, and all those marks will be gone. But the stand-up steamer as well kind of fluffs that fabric back out from not being pressed down so much. All right, so yeah. And then I could also just press the rest of the shirt so that way it has the same press as this, meaning just go over here to the heat rep, press half of it this way, and you only have to do it for probably like 20, 30 seconds. I'm only going to do it for about 10 seconds. So you can definitely, it's not as prevalent as it was. It's basically now got less moisture in it. Yeah, I apologize about the dirty finger thing, but yeah, that was just me. All right, but yeah, so if this kind of explains it a little bit better, then okay. All right, so now let's go on. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording. Okay, so from here, we're going to take a look at our Viper 2. Oh, okay, so before I move on, somebody had the question about the magic sizing stuff. ColDesi currently does not sell it, but you can get it at like your local grocery store. It's in the spray starch area. It's a blue can, probably about 12 inches tall. Just says magic sizing on it. Works great for ironing shirts if you don't like that stiff, starchy feeling either. Multi-purpose stuff. All right, so now we're going to talk about the Viper 2 here. The Viper 2, what it does is it has a platen that sits on a belt system. You have these two little green belts that run down either side of this track which move your platen, all right? So one of the things that you can do is you have these Teflon strips that run down here, not the cork ones that are on the edge, but the actual Teflon strip. The Teflon strips, what they do is, if you notice, that there are screw holes going down here. So and not the best design, but it's for making these platens so that way they can have interchangeable tops and things like that. But by putting this Teflon strip there, it covers up those screw holes, so that way as the platen's going in and over that little media switch that's up inside the machine, that it doesn't become untriggered and think that it's loaded or unloaded with the traveling of the platen. Okay, so if your Teflon strip has started to wear out, you could take something as simple as packing tape, stretch it real tight across there, just so it covers up those holes, or those screw holes. All right. So what we're going to adjust, I'm going to set this down here on the floor real quick so I can show you what we're adjusting. Let me pull the thing right over here. All right, so this is our media switch right here. That's what registers the platen. So the way this works is if I hit load, the green belts start moving. If the platen does not trigger this switch in a specific amount of time, it will go into an error. The platen, it disengages the platen system, the load and eject. So if that ever happens, just restart your machine. But the way it works, even with a platen nut on there, if I hit load, what it's expecting me to do is the belts start moving. As long as this is triggered or pushed towards the back, these belts will continuously run, all right? Because it's thinking that the platen is still on top of the ball here, all right? So as soon as I let go of it, the belts stop at a specific millisecond, so that way it'll always stop in the same position, all right? So things that can happen that can cause this to become untriggered is, say somebody drops the platen on the floor, all right? And say this little corner right here gets bent up a little bit, so that way it's just got a little bit of a curve to it. So as it slides across it, that thing comes untriggered too fast, and then the platen has not gone all the way in. But then when it returns to do the color layer, then you have an offset where the color and white don't match up. So how to adjust it? We need to take the two screws out right of here. And let me go grab a screwdriver real quick, so I will be right back. All right, I don't have my tool bag here with me, but I'm going to try to see if I can reach in here and do it with a small screwdriver. All right, so this is the bracket that it's mounted to, so I can take these two screws out, making sure not to lose them. And then I can grab it by the little plunger and pull up on it, being careful that there is a wire connected to the bottom of it. So what I'll do is pull up a little bit of slack so it doesn't drop down in the machine, and then I can disconnect it. All right, so now let's take a look at our media switch here. So as this platen travels across it, it triggers it, goes across, and then it will, when it goes past it, it untriggers, and then the platen stops. Oops, that'll probably be a better image there. So it goes across, hits it, and then the platen stops once it becomes untriggered. All right, so there is a zip tie around it. Just leave that on there if you need to adjust it. Let's see if we can move this around a little bit. So one thing I did notice about ours right here is that it's twisted a little bit. You see how it's kind of angled towards the back there? So what I do is just loosen up the two set screws here. And then I'm going to make it even straight across because I want that little finger to stick straight up out of its hole there. But it can't go too far out of the hole because what will happen then is that the platen will like ramp up on top of it. So we'll get that straight across there. And it probably sticks up just a hair past the border here. All right. And it depends on the way your belts are set up and everything like that, whether or not how high it sticks up. All right, and a way to tell if it's not up far enough is that the platen stops in the wrong area and doesn't go back to the same place every single time. So now that I've got that adjusted, let's go ahead and tighten these two screws down. All right, so the finger's going straight up and down. All right, and then we'll go ahead and put this back in. Now, it can go in either way. Like, see how it's kind of to one side? Like, which way did it go? All right, I like to have it towards the outside. All right? So, be really careful when you're putting it back on. As you can see, and here in the plug, there are two little prongs that stick down. That's what slide up into the actual plug. I've seen people actually bend these out of shape trying to jam it back up in there. So that it just slides in, it just kind of snugly goes back in. There's like a little raised tab on one side of the actual white plug that slides into it. That faces out. Slide this back in, drop it into place. Let's put our screws back on. All right. Let's see here. Let's see if it loads to the same place every time. So I'll take a platen up here and hit load. I have to reset the machine since I disconnected the media switch. Easiest way to reset, power off with the emergency stop, power back up. We'll bring this over here real quick so we can see where it loads to. All right. Oh, it's got one of those phantom errors. Back it up a little bit. So what I'll do is take a pencil. I got a mechanical pencil, but what I'll do is actually mark on the bed where it loads to. So that way I can always keep a reference when I hit load and stuff like that. If it doesn't go back to that same spot when you hit load, then yeah, don't print the shirt or you're going to have a misregistered garment. Okay, so let's hit load. Goes just past the media sensor. Let me pull you up top here so you can see exactly where it loaded to. So I can see the edge of the platen right there versus the bracket. So we're going to mark here right where the edge of the platen goes to. Just try to get it as close to the platen as possible. So let's hit eject. Okay, let's hit load again. I went right back to that identical spot. Let's see if I can get the camera in there. Got my little line there. Let's hit eject. Let's see my little line there. Let's hit load. Stops in the same spot. All right. So every once in a while, if you start having, like it's been printing great for weeks, no registration issues, anything like that, definitely call into support if it's just confusing to you. But yeah, that would be something that you should check. If it's not loading to the same place every single time, then yeah, it can definitely give you an issue. All right? So that's an easy way to adjust and correct registration issues. Any questions on that?
Yeah, any of the other options to solve.
Okay. So hopefully this is just some basic stuff. I know this tech talk wasn't really specific about something in general, so doing a general question and answer type stuff for print issues. Is anybody else having any other print issues that we might be able to address? And that way we can kind of touch base on them and see if we can help you out. Let's see. If not, we'll probably draw the tech talk to a close. All right. Oh, we do have a question. All right. I have occasional double lines on my prints. Okay. So double lines on your prints, what that means, let me kind of show you. And let's see, this is Robert. So Robert has you have a Viper 2, correct? Yes. All right. So let me show you, and I can actually, if you call into the support line, I have a test file, okay? And I'll pull it up on screen in a second. Let me go ahead and turn off the camera here. So that way we're just doing the screen. All right, so I'm going to open up Photoshop. I'm going to show you what this file looks like. So if you need this file, and anybody, you can call in and request and it's called an alignment test for bidirectional printing. All right, I have one both for the M2 and also the Viper 2. All right, so this is what it looks like. Let me bring it up real quick. Turn this way so you can hear me a little bit better. All right, so say we're doing the Viper 2 alignment test. All right, so when I look at this design here, let me zoom into it. As you can see, there are a bunch of just lines that will go from the front of the machine to the back of the machine, basically in the same direction as the platen travels, okay? So these lines, if they print doubled instead of single lines right here, it had like two close to each other, sort of like you're seeing in your lettering, that means one or two things, all right? The first one and the most likely one is your platens are level, okay? Or a collar or seam or something like that stuck up in an area and cause the platen to drop a little bit and not be at the gap height, all right? So the way I would do this is I would go into my RIP software. Let's go to the Viper quality. Let's go to white shirts. I'm just going to go to Viper white vest. Oh, I got to go to the Viper 2. Let's go Viper graphics quality. All right, and then I'll import that image. Hold on a second. I'm going to do a V2 same. Get my file real quick. So what it will look like is when it imports, all those lines will be going from the front of the machine to the back of the machine. It fills up both platens here. All right? So then we would print that out, and you would send me a picture of the entire platen, all right? And then one of the individual shirts apiece, all right? So say I had like double lines in a just in one area of one of the platens. That means that area is too low, so that corner is probably tucked down. Say the lines are crisp in the middle, but doubled on the edges of the platens. That means something is like humped up in the middle of the two platens. Whether you could be using that black plastic topper, and it has gotten warped, so that way it creates like a bubble on top of the platen. So the middle, where the bubble is, would be crisper because that's what the gap lasers would level to, and the edges over here would be doubled. So that's what you would see, okay? To adjust it, you would have to go through, level your platens. We have two different videos for that, one from the training sessions and one that I did separately is just a step-by-step walkthrough. Also, we can even go into set, and then if all else fails and you have like everything printing right, but every single one of them are doubled, it could be the height of the platen as well, and also you could need a bidirectional head alignment that can be done through the machine. I would not do the head alignment until you have everything else checked off with one of your technicians. And we run this test on there to make sure that it's not something that can just be fixed mechanically versus electronically. Because if you start getting out of whack and you start trying to get just one section to print crisp, that means all the other sections will be uncrisp too. Okay, so hopefully that answered some questions there. Robert, if you need further explanation and you want to get this test file so that way we can see which way you need to go. If it's only happening every once in a blue moon, what that typically means is that something like a collar or a wrinkle or a tag was sticking up and it made the platen drop while it was printing, all right? Because the further it gets away from the print head, the ink starts to spread out because it sprays down into a cone. So as it gets further away from the print head, the bigger it gets, so it will also get blurry and double. Okay?
Last year.
All right, guys. So hopefully, if you do have any further questions or want further explanation, actually be able to talk to somebody, definitely create a support ticket. I'll jump on there and explain everything to you a little bit in more detail.